everybody, and welcome to the Football Philosophy channel. And this is the slightly delayed rating the rating show. I normally try and do it the day after, or maybe the day after the day after the game. And this is it's now Sunday. We played on Thursday against Granada, but I'm doing this early on Sunday morning. I've been a little bit too busy to have a chance to re-watch the game as I always like to, but I've managed to do it now. So it's Spurs this afternoon, and I'm just putting up the ratings from the Granada game from the on the Sunday morning, the day of the match. So I'll touch on the Spurs game as well at the end again. But on the Granada game, got the job done. We 2-0 win away from home. You can't complain. There was quite a lot of stuff going around on Twitter on the night of the game. People saying why are people disappointed with the way they played. I put a response on Twitter myself because there were so many people, a lot of people complaining with the way United played and saying the game was poor. We didn't knock the ball around well enough. We didn't dominate the game well enough. And some people were saying, stop complaining. We're 2-0 up in a European tie from the away leg. It's a great performance. You've got to take that. And I put on Twitter that I would agree with that if we were still in the Champions League. If we'd just gone to a Champions League quarter-final, whoever it was against, and won 2-0 away from home, you would have to say that you'd be over the moon with that. But this is the Europa League. I do think that in the Europa League, I don't think we should be quite as excited about a 2-0 away win against a team who are about 10th in La Liga, whose whole squad, according to the commentary the other night, whose whole squad cost them €8 million, or the team on the field cost them €8 million. I do think that we should be playing better and should be dominating the game more and should at least be getting a win and playing better football, in my opinion. So I think it's a bit of a catch-22 situation. I think the people who are complaining that we didn't play well enough have got a point, but at the same time, the other people who are saying we've got a 2-0 lead. It is great to have a 2-0 lead. I know it's only the Europa League, but if it was in the Champions League, I would be 110. That's what I put on Twitter. If it was in the Champions League, I would be 110% in that camp that, yeah, we've won 2-0 away from home. Job done. That'll do. I'm not quite sure I completely agree with that, though, with it being a Europa League quarter-final. In fact, as I put in the tweet, I actually said it's a little bit like playing in the Championship. There's 16 teams get through to the Europa League. It's not, in the Champions League, when you're in the group stages, which we were, there are 16 teams that get through to the knockout stages. It's not that far short of a whole Premier League, is it? If you know what I mean, it's 16 teams get through to the Champions League. We've not managed to be in the Champions League knockout stages. It's a bit like we're playing in the Championship, and struggling to dominate the opposition as well as we'd like to. But anyway, the Manchester Evening News ratings from that Granada game. David De Gea, they've said, handled some straight but firm shots from Kennedy faultlessly. A confident night, even if he did not have a proper save to make. They've given him a 7, which is good. I would agree with that. I will agree with a 7 for David De Gea. I thought he played quite well on the night. As they've said, there was no spectacular saves, but there's a couple of awkward moments. They needed fielding pretty well. And as I often say, a clean sheet, it's difficult to mark a keeper down if he keeps a clean sheet. So I think to say a 7 and he played well, he's fine. Wan-Bissaka, excellent composure in his own third, that he should transmit to the final third more often. They've given him a 7, played well. I think I'll agree with that. I think Wan-Bissaka played well enough on the night. The thing about the composure, it's a difficult thing to put your finger on. I can see where they're coming from, and he does show great composure defensively. He's come on I've said this before, he's come on in leaps and bounds since I first saw him playing for United, and his control and his passing in his own half, he's good now. It really is fine most of the time. But also, it doesn't seem to me about his composure. I've seen him do some lovely stuff in the opponent's final third as well. Doesn't seem to be about composure. I think it's just about technique on crossing. I think his crossing lets him down too often. But his passing and his movement doesn't seem to be too bad. It's the actual technique of crossing the ball, to me, that lets him down a little bit too often. So I don't agree that he lacks composure in their third. I think his composure is decent at both ends of the field. Victor Lindelof, a fabulous pick out for Marcus Rashford's goal, they've said, and bailed out Harry Maguire when he was beaten by Herrera. They've given him an 8. An 8 is very good. I gave Lindelof man of the match, but I don't think on the night an 8 was necessary. I think he just played well. I'll give him a 7. That's everybody in my book's got a 7 so far. But like I say, you can play on a 7 and still be a little bit better than somebody else who got a 7. So I'll still stick with Victor Lindelof as my man of the match, as I said on the fan cam after the game. And I was pleased to see that quite a few of the outlets did give Victor Lindelof man of the match as well. But I think a 7's good enough. And then Harry Maguire, they've said, a largely serene night alongside Lindelof, save one transgression. Showed adventure in the final third a couple of times. He holds on to, he runs with it a little bit too much in their half. But then again, he is trying to pull people out of position when he does that. But yeah, a 7 I think is fair enough. I would say a 7 for Harry Maguire as well. Luke Shaw maintained his consistent performance level, but booked and suspended for the second leg, substituted at half-time, they've said. I think there was numerous reasons for substituting at half-time. But, as I've just said, we were playing Granada. It's a Europa League team. We were 1-0 up already. We were looking pretty secure. We've got Spurs on Sunday. Luke Shaw, it's vital that he remains fit for that. He was already on a yellow card at half-time. They didn't want that to turn into a red and to be down to 10 men at any stage. So there was lots of different things that went into. Obviously, we don't know whether he'd had a little bit of a knock as well and whether he felt as though he needed to come off. But I think to mark him down for a 6, he played at least as well as any of the other defenders while he was on the field. So I would say a 7 for Luke Shaw as well. Scott McTominay shielded the back four next to Paul Pogba and then Nemanja Matic, also banned for next week's return leg. I noticed that, by the way. Harry Maguire got suspended, he got a card. So then I thought, well, and Bailey's, I don't think he's even in the UK, Bailey, is he? He didn't come back from international duty and COVID was reported. So I'll be staggered if Bailey's available for next week. So I think there'll be room for Axel there. So Axel will probably get a game at centre-back. It also crossed my mind at first. I wonder whether he might play Shaw as a centre-back, but obviously Shaw's suspended as well. But that might have been an option because he's played centre-back for us in a 3 a few times. And I thought, well, if it would have been an ideal time to see him play in a pair and see how it does. And Telles could have played left-back, but obviously it can't happen because Shaw is suspended as well. So I think Axel will be getting a game in the second leg. So Scott McTominay's missed. Funnily enough, Scott McTominay plays centre-back for Scotland as well. He might have been an option, but he's missing as well. But they've given him a 6, Scott McTominay. A 6 is decent. I would say that's fair enough. A 6 for Scott McTominay is fine. Paul Pogba seemed inhibited by his early yellow card. Early on in the game, I thought Paul was particularly sloppy, to be honest. He'd given the ball away cheaply, he'd miscontrolled it once, he'd tried a silly pass where he should have given an easy pass. There was numerous things that he did wrong in the first 10 or 15 minutes, and that included his touch led to him making a challenge that he got a card for, but he did improve after that, and I think he had a decent game overall. So I would agree with what they've said, a 6 out of 10. Dan James, it said it all, that he only ever looked a threat off the ball. Looks restricted again on the right wing, but then livelier on the left. The Evening News have said they've given him a 6. At least they're beginning to appreciate how important it is, possibly the beginning, because they usually give him 3s and 4s, that it is important that you do well when you've not got the ball. He did do a couple of great things with the ball as well, by the way. One cross that he put over where he was chasing the ball to the corner flag, like running like Linford Christie, if you like, and he only just kept it in. And at the same time, arrowed the ball straight across the 6-yard box at a perfect height and nobody coming in on it. Was absolutely brilliant. So I don't think he was quite as bad with the ball as they like to say, as they often like to say. And they also, what I like about Dan James is the way he receives the ball. And when he receives the ball, he seems to know which way he wants to go before he gets it. And it might not sound a lot, but that's one of the things that I like about him. He understands if there's room to run into, whether it's worth taking a man on, whether the man's got cover. And his touch often takes him back and he gives it to the fullback quickly. So the fullback receives it more quickly than he might receive it from one or two of our other players that sometimes play on the wing, who seems to take a little bit longer to decide whether they're going to try and take a man on and then turn back and then pass. And it seems a little bit more laborious to me with our other players. Dan James, he seems to take a quick touch and he's turned instantly and gives it back to the fullback. And I think the play flows a little better with Dan James. I honestly believe that. That's what I see. So, but it's a tiny little thing that's important, but I don't think people see it. I don't think they realise how important it is. So I think Dan James, they've given him, I'm not saying he's, look, this is always the thing with Dan James. I'm not saying he's Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, but he's not as bad as people make out. Nothing like as bad as people make out. And I think the 6 that they've given him, which is a decent game, he was certainly as decent as Scott McTominay's got a 6, Paul Pogba's got a 6, and I don't think Dan James deserves less than that. So that's fine, a 6 for Dan James. Bruno Fernandes, they've put whined too much in the first half and never looked likely in the second half until he won a penalty that he converted. They've given him a 6, which is decent. I thought Bruno had a decent game on the night. A couple of things in there that whined too much, so too much complaining. I think they mean to the referee. I mean, they could mean to his own teammates as well, but I think they mean to the referee. But then, never looked likely until he won a penalty. When I think of somebody winning a penalty, I think of somebody taking somebody on in the box who can't handle the speed of you, and you get tripped up, and that's what I call winning a penalty. There was no skill or any trickery that won this penalty. The guy seemed to slap Bruno in the face for no given reason while they were just standing there waiting for the ball to come in the box. So it was for a foul on Bruno that we got the penalty, but I don't call that winning a penalty. The penalty was given to us, if you like, as opposed to us winning it. That's how I see that one. But still, if that's what he wants to write, he did win the penalty. But yes, so 6 out of 10, perfectly fine. I thought Bruno did have a decent game. Marcus Rashford, they've given a 7 to. Overcame apparent discomfort at the start to score superbly before coming off just past the hour. I would say Marcus had a decent game. No more than decent. He scored a brilliant goal. Anybody who watches regular will know that one brilliant piece in a game doesn't necessarily mean you've had a good game. Doesn't even necessarily get you in it. Sometimes I do say, I'll give him an extra mark for that. But really, one brilliant piece of play in a game doesn't necessarily get you an extra mark. If you've had a poor game or a decent game, you've still had a poor or a decent game, even if you did one brilliant. When you think about one brilliant thing that takes what? His run was a good run, fantastic ball by Lindelof. His touch, Marcus's touch was superb, it really was. And then a little nudge forward. A lot of people won't realise how good that is, a little nudge forward with his shin or his knee just to keep it exactly where he wanted it and then slotted it in the corner. It really was a brilliant goal. I was interested, he took another one of his free kicks from a bit of a distance that I don't like, and as for me, as it often does, it sailed about 4 or 5 yards over the bar. And I think, I don't know if Robbie Savage is, because I've mentioned this loads of times, and I don't know whether Robbie Savage is getting onto it now. As they were lining the free kick up, Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes were standing over the ball. And Robbie Savage said, if Marcus takes it, it'll be a shot. And if Bruno takes it, it'll be a curled cross towards the far post. And then Bruno walked away and the commentator said, looks like it's going to be Marcus Rashford. Marcus took it. It went, as I say, 4 or 5 yards over the bar. It was poor. Don't care how far out it is. If it's going to be that poor, you shouldn't be shooting from that far out. And then Robbie Savage said, I remember him scoring one from that distance against Chelsea in the League Cup. He said, he said, but I can't remember him scoring too many others. Well, the thing is, he scored 2 cracking free kicks for United. He scored that one at Chelsea. I've mentioned this before, but he has taken another one this week. And Robbie Savage has now mentioned on commentary that he doesn't score them very often. He scored one at Chelsea, which was an absolute cracker. He scored one at Celta Vigo, which was an absolute cracker. The Chelsea one was probably 18 months ago. The Celta Vigo one was probably 18 months before that. And he scored a couple of fairly lucky ones as well. He had one that was deflected off the wall at Cardiff. And he also scored one at Benfica in the Champions League where the keeper caught it and stepped behind the line with it. So he scored 4 free kicks. And they're actually all in different seasons as well. He scored 1 a season. Now, obviously, Bruno's there now, and he's not. So Marcus isn't taking quite as many as he used to take. So he hasn't scored 1 yet this season, and you know, you never know. He might not take many more with Bruno being on the scene. But to me, it just isn't frequent enough. He might be able to hit it well, and it might sometimes trouble the keeper, but it just isn't enough for the amount of free kicks that he's taken over the years. You know, I believe any professional footballer can whack a ball hard. Any professional footballer. Some might be able to hit it a little bit harder than others. Some might be able to put that bit of deviation on it, like the way he can get it up and over. But he often doesn't dip. It often goes too high. You know, some others might do it just as well if they tried it just as often. I mean, they must go through this in training. You might say, well, surely they've tried it in training and nobody else can get it to dip like he can. But he often doesn't get it to dip. I mean, would it not be worth? I mean, Scott McTominay, I've seen him score some cracking goals from outside the box. If he whacked it, I'm sure he'd score. I mean, Marcus has scored 1 a season. I bet Scott McTominay would have scored 1 a season if he took as many each season. So I just don't see it, mate. I just don't see this idea of shooting from such distance from free kicks when it's going to go in so infrequently. And I think the percentage would be better if you just passed it or crossed it and tried to get the move going, get the play going, rather than shooting from free kicks from such distance where he scored 2 in, you know, from that distance. He scored 2 in four of, well, it's coming up to 5 seasons now. It just isn't frequent enough, and I would knock it on the head. I really would. But overall, on the game, decent game for Marcus. I thought 6 out of 10 is fine. Mason Greenwood, the last one on the Manchester Evening News one, last one on the team sheet. Still too raw to expertly lead the line. Now then, I've been talking about Mason for 12 months, where I've been saying that I think people are reading a little bit too much into a lad who's got ability and he can smash a ball and he can finish a chance. Now, I don't know if this is the Manchester Evening News. I think it's not the first time they've marked him so low. They've put still too raw to expertly lead the line. Often isolated and naive when he did get the ball and moved to the right to accommodate Cavani. And they've given him a 4 out of 10. Now then, a 4 out of 10 from the Manchester Evening News to a young lad who's come through the ranks. They often get a little bit of a free pass, often, and they seem to be on Mason's case. I don't know if they're thinking that he's going to be the answer as a centre forward, or whether they're already looking at him and saying, is this lad going to be the answer to play at number 9, as so many of the fans seem to think. It's not the first time I've seen them mark Mason as low as this. It isn't the first time. A friend of mine phoned me up straight after the game and said to me, Mason, I've been watching him playing on the wing for so long and thinking that his best position is at centre forward. And now that I've seen him play at centre forward a couple of times, I'm thinking his best position might be on the right wing. It's only a friend of mine. There is words. And I can see where he's coming from. Mason seems to flatter to deceive to me a little bit too often. We've got Spurs away today. Will he keep his place? after we played Leicester last week, I thought Fred was absolutely terrible at Leicester, and then kept his place. Sorry, I've got that wrong. It wasn't Leicester last week. Leicester was just before the international break, and he was shocking. And I think Fred got a 4 out of 10 in a lot of places, and I probably gave him a 4 out of 10 for that game. And then I mentioned that surely he needed to be left out of the team against Brighton, but he played against Brighton and played well, by the way. I played a lot better. Now, Mason was particularly poor the other night. There was one little passage of play where he had the ball on the left, and he should have, with his back to goal on the halfway line, and he should have laid it off, and he held it a little bit too long. Then he ended up in a little bit of trouble, but he got out of a little bit of trouble and managed to turn infield, and he saw Scott McTominay literally 5 yards away, and his pass was just a little bit sloppy, and it's just a yard or so in front of McTominay, and it's only a 4 or 5 yard pass. It needs to be straight to you, and McTominay's overstretching for it and can't quite reach it, and the ball goes away. And then when you watch it, when you're watching it live, some people might have thought McTominay should have got that. The pass has just got to be better. You're not, when you're playing football, and especially at that level, even at the levels that I've played at though, when you can see your teammate who's got the ball 4 or 5 yards away from you and you're waiting for a pass, you're expecting that pass to come straight to you. Of course you're supposed to be on your toes, of course you are. But sometimes you might be thinking, look, you might be thinking, well, this is an easy pass. I can see where I'm going to give it to next. A little glance, and then you're looking back, and then the ball's a yard or two in front of you, and you can't reach it. If it comes straight to you, you can afford that glance of where you're going to go next, and then the ball's at your feet when you look back down and you take hold of the ball. So the pass has just got to be more accurate and better weighted, and it's a little bit sloppy. Watching it live, and I've rewound it and watched it and rewound it and watched it. Watching it live, it might well look to people, oh, Scott McTominay should have got that. And I think the pass has just got to be a little bit better. It needs to be straight to the person, or 2 foot in front of him, not 4 or 5 foot in front of him when it's only a 4 or 5 yard pass. And then, literally, 30 seconds later, Scott McTominay gets the ball, passes the ball into Mason's feet. Mason tries to lay it off, but sort of scuffs it, and it only travels. So he's just overhit one to McTominay, and then 30 seconds later, perhaps, he underhits one. It only he's trying to hit a 10-yard pass that only travels about 3 yards. It doesn't only travel about 3 yards because it gets intercepted or cut out. It literally only travels 3 yards. It isn't, it's going to stop in another yard or so, but a player gets hold of it, and, an opponent gets hold of it and takes the ball away. And I did think, I thought, Mason had a pretty poor game. Whether he might, what Ollie did with Fred after the Leicester game, keeping in the team at Brighton, and, they might have, I don't know what happened, whether he tried to boost Fred's confidence, whether he worked with him during the international break. But maybe nothing was said. I don't know. I really don't know. But Fred's performance change between Leicester and Brighton was unbelievable. The player was like chalk and cheese between those 2 games. So whether they might thrust Mason and to see what he's made of, they might thrust him into the team today. Let's see if you can show us that you can bounce back from that and play a lot better. Or whether they've got, if McTominay and Fred play, I discussed this yesterday, if McTominay and Fred play, and if Bruno plays at 10, all of those things will probably happen. They might try and fit Pogba in wide left, perhaps. If they do that, they might try and fit Marcus right. Mason might play at number 9, but also it might be Cavani's turn. So you can't read anything into it. If Mason doesn't play, it might not be that he's dropped because he didn't play well enough. It may just be that we can only play 11, you can only fit so many in. So it remains to be seen. But for me, the way Mason played the other night, if I was the manager, Mason would not be starting this game anyway, so long as you've got options to take his place. But they've given him a 4 out of 10, and a 4 out of 10 is poor, and I would agree with that 4 out of 10. subs, Alex Telles, they've put handy at dead ball situations and from open play and given him a 7. I will give Alex Telles a 6. He just had a decent game. But that's funny what they've written. Handy at dead ball situations and from open play. So you better not be handy from open play. He's playing for Man United. But there you go. So that's the rating. The ratings from the Granada game. Spurs this afternoon. Desperate for at least a draw. I went through this on the show yesterday. We need to keep Spurs 11 points behind us, and then that's them completely out of the picture of having any chance of catching us up. If they beat us, they're 8 points behind us with 7 to play. If you was a Spurs fan, you'd still be thinking to yourself, there's a glimmer of hope there that we could catch Manchester United even, who are in second at the moment. So if they beat us, they'll be 8 points behind us. If we just draw with them, they're 11 points behind us, and that will put paid to that. So United will probably line up. I went through it yesterday. Well, I'm not probably, that's the wrong phrase, but I would hazard a guess that I think Henderson will come back in goal. It looks to me that's the plan now. Henderson in the league games and De Gea in the Europa League. I might be wrong on that one. The back four will be the usual back four: Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire and Shaw. I'm pretty sure McTominay or Fred will come back together in the centre of midfield with Bruno at 10. I think Pogba will play wide on the left, and I think Marcus will switch to wide right. If he plays Marcus, he seems to be struggling injury wise every single game, and why he forces him into action every single game is beyond me. We have got other players. We have got other players who can do a decent job. People might say Marcus scored a brilliant goal the other night. He did score a brilliant goal, but we might get a goal in a different manner. We might get he doesn't need to be afraid. But I don't know what Ollie's afraid of. So if Marcus is struggling, he needs to give him a rest. He needs to give him a rest. For me, if Marcus is struggling injury-wise, he should play Dan James on the right, he should play Pogba on the left, and he should play Cavani at number 9. It's as simple as that. But I've got a feeling Marcus will be pressed into action again, and I think it'll be Marcus on the right, I think it'll be Pogba on the left, and I think Cavani will start at 9. So that remains to be seen. We will soon find out now. I'll be going live later today, about an hour and 10 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes before kickoff. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope you've enjoyed that show. If you've enjoyed that show, please tell all your friends. Please subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, don't tell anybody. Keep stum.